Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tom Devine. I'm with AVPro and I'm here with my buddy John Tumbleson. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Tom. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. We want to thank everybody for joining us. It's here, it's official. This is our, you want to hit mute on your computer there, John?
Yes, I will.
It's official, it's here. We are going to be launching the 10G system from MXNet. We've actually been talking about it since August, me and John have, with you guys.
Yeah, we've been throwing a bunch of sneak peeks out there, little things here and there, but they were kind of teases because they weren't quite ready to go, weren't ready for prime time, but it's a great day today because we're ready to go.
Exactly. And so we thank you for joining. We're going to go over the entire MXNet 10G system. Since we've shown you a lot, we'll try to go over it in a high level overview, but still give you all the pieces that you need. I do want to let you know that we have a questions area right on your GoToWebinar control panel that you can just type up questions and me and John can address them. If we don't address them as we're going through, we will address them in the end. And then if you're watching on YouTube later, you can just put it right in the comments. That's no problem. And I'll always follow up with that later. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. And I'm going to be going through our PowerPoint here on the MXNet system. But as you can see, we also have one here, right? Yep. And we have a 7G beautiful image coming all the way through on it that you can see. Yep. So we're going to be going through it realistically. We're going to be able to, you're going to see how it works. We can point to the different units that we're talking about as we go through this presentation. And thank you again for joining us. So without further ado, let me share this screen here. Okay, so you guys should now be able to see the main screen that says MXNet Networked AV Ecosystem. If you're not able to see that, definitely let me know. It looks like on my preview that it's coming through okay. So that's exactly what this is. It's an ecosystem. And you may be used to AVPro Edge's MXNet 1G system. And if you are, then you know what the ecosystem is. But if you're not, what it means is that we are able to give you the components to build an entire audio video distribution system using networked infrastructure. So that means we will get you the encoders and decoders that are going to handle the HDMI conversion, but we're also going to give you the control box that allows it to the commands to be sent from any control system you have to become a part of this. And we're also going to provide the network switches that you can see right here. And by having the network switches be under the same branding as the encoders and decoders, which in this case are transceivers because they can act as both, you will see that the control now happens or all is given to the integrator, because the integrator now knows that every single step of the way is done by one company. All the components are meant to work with each other, and you're able to provide that beautiful distribution system with very, very high quality imaging. And that's what's really important with with the MXNet 10G.
And the support side of it as well. So anybody that's ever dealt with any kind of network distributed audio video, in the past you had to go find the switch to go with the encoders and decoders. Nobody made the switch too. So when you had a problem, you couldn't get a picture. It was either the switch's fault or it was the encoders and decoders' fault. There's this finger pointing thing going on. Not in this case, obviously. All this stuff has our name on it. It has our 10-year warranty. So, it's all supported by us through our tech support. Have a, A1 rated tech support team in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, ready to help you when you're getting it set up.
Exactly. And I don't want to, also we have tech support in Florida, we have tech support in Wisconsin, we're all over the country being able to help you. And we work with great international partners so that if you are international, you'll have that tech support advantage still as well. All right, so let's get a little bit into this and talk about how powerful of a system is. And what MXNet 10G is it is a networked AV ecosystem, and we utilize SDVoE technology. And SDVoE is an alliance that allows us to get the best performance that we can out of our transceivers. And what really makes this special is this list of bullet points. I'll touch on a few of these. It's an expandable system. So you could have 2 endpoints, and an endpoint is a source or a sink. You could have 2 endpoints, or you could have 200, or you could have 2,000 if you knew how to set up the networking topology for 10G, which can be a little bit to do when you get to those larger sizes.
Yes.
It can do uncompressed 4K, uses light compression to deliver 18 gigabits per second signaling, Dolby Vision, HLG, HDR, can support all of these different things. You can actually put multi-view, so we can see multiple sources on screen, and John will show us that after a little bit. But also you can make video walls, unlimited video walls. You can combine multi-view signals to go onto video walls. It's ultra low latency, so great for live events, great for gaming, and it also is able to pass along a 1G Ethernet infrastructure or throughout your entire infrastructure.
All right. In fact, when we talk about ultra low latency, less than 1/10 of a millisecond. I mean, it is insanely low latency. And another trivia thing, real quick, what does SDVoE stand for? It stands for Software Defined Video over Ethernet. Just to throw that in there.
Boom.
Boo.
That's why we have John over here, right, guys?
Yeah.
He's keeping us straight. All right. And so now we're going to get a little bit into the components. I'm just going to tell you about it before we're looking at it. And you guys are looking at it right here as well, but you need a transceiver for each endpoint. You need a control box, just one, and you need a network switch to connect them all together. Once you have those components, you have yourselves the runnings for an MXNet 10G ecosystem. And for larger systems that you don't know how you're always going to stack or how you're going to put them together, you just lean on AVPro Edge, and we're here to help you with that. But looking at this connection diagram here, this is what, how you would set the system up. So you have your 4K sources right here. This is the 12C. This is one of our network switches that we will get into. But this is the one that has PoE, so you can just use copper, normal Cat6A. So we'll have 4 HDMI sources going into 4 transceivers, and these will be set as encoders. And then we will have our one decoder right here, the same transceiver but set as a decoder coming out. And we also have more displays coming here setting that will be around as this is set as a decoder, so we'll decode to these signals. And so now we can take these sources, we can play all 4 sources on one screen, we can play any of those individual sources over here, and with this control box that's connected to your local area network, you're actually able to then manipulate everything, allow this source to go to this TV. You can duplicate and repeat however many times you want, and you can use any of your third-party control systems like Control4 or Crestron to do the actual switching. And your your control system brain will then talk to this control box and tell these encoders and decoders exactly what to play at the exact moment and the exact zone that you want it to play in. And so that's kind of the overall topology of how this gets put together. But we can kind of see here from this picture that we're showing, this is actually from Infocom earlier this year where we showed off this live, and we had a 2x2 video wall. So as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. And on these panels, each one of these panels had 3 sources plus part of an additional source. So we're using this as a video wall and as a multi-viewer all at the same time. Just showing the capabilities that what MXNet can do. And so now we're going to kind of get directly into what the actual components are. We're going to break down each of the SKUs. You're going to be able to look through them. We have them here. And then after we get through breaking down this, I will then hand it over to John, and we get to look at all that beautiful magic that I know you want to see with the MXNet Mentor system. So our transceivers are going to be right here. What you see is the kind of the flashing blue lights. These are our transceivers, and we have 3 different versions. You have your transceiver, which is your standard transceiver, which is the 10G transceiver. Then you have the transceiver Pro. That's going to be for our commercial folks who are needing Dante, needing USB 2.0 fully extended. We put an Icron module in there so you can use extreme USB through the MXNet system. And then we have a AVDM, and this is for if you have multi-channel audio that you need to move down to 2-channel. Sometimes you'll be pushing audio throughout a zone, and your in-wall speakers only have 2 speakers, or your in-ceiling speakers, there's only 2, so you can't do multi-channel. You need to down mix that. Well, we can do all that in our system with our choices.
In fact, the beauty of the AVDM is that you can also still maintain the multi-channel signal through the HDMI connection. So that's going to a theater room or whatever, you're going to get your full Atmos sound and all that. But at the same time, you're going to have 2-channel audio going out to all the multi-zones throughout the building.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you can picture yourself, you're putting together a museum. You have this beautiful museum audio video piece that has a bunch of speakers that you need to put together, but the rest of the museum doesn't have all of these different channels. You can down mix, so you can send 2-channel to the rest of the museum, and in your one big showpiece place that has all those speakers, you can send this multi-channel audio. So no matter what kind of installations that you're doing, you're able to use the AVDM. Let's take a closer look at the actual unit. And we've been talking a lot about what makes this an advantage of this. And I think one of the major advantages of our unit is you can choose copper infrastructure or you can choose fiber optic infrastructure. And it all comes down to these ports, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, exactly. So, and you see the little switches where it says select for SDVoE. Is it going to go in through fiber, or is it going to go in through copper? So Cat 6, let's say. And you also have the PoE select in there. So you see to the right there, the PoE select. This decides whether I'm going to pump the PoE power for that unit either through a 1G connection, or I can actually use the 10G to do it as well. So it gives you lots of flexibility. One of the things, and we're going to get more into it, but we're the only company that's got an actual switch that'll do 10G over, PoE, Cat 6, Ethernet. I mean, just and beyond. So I'll be showing it to you a little bit.
Exactly, and we'll jump right to it because I just want to touch on again that you can do Dante or you can do USB 2.0 with those other units. This is a picture of the Extreme USB chip that actually goes into the unit so that we can do that Extreme USB. We use the Icron chip, so you know it's going to have that stable USB connection. And then we can get into I guess before our network switches, we got to talk about our control box here. So we talked about it really shortly, but here's actually, a closer look at your control box, how you have your connection for using fiber connection, and this is what you'll need in order to get that screen preview. You have your PoE connection, so then this is what connects to, send the signals back and forth from your system to the to your network. And then you also have these 4 ports for redundancy as well as switch management.
Yep.
And nice little screens on top so that if you can go in here, you can click, 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 find that that IP address, and then you can connect right to that Mentor.
This looks very similar to the 1G, but it's got a lot of special stuff inside.
Exactly. I mean, it looks almost exactly like the 1G, but as you can see, we have this port right here that's going to make a big difference and allow us to give that screen preview. Yeah. And with SDVoE, for some of you have installed 1G, it's no big deal, screen preview, right? Because we've had it forever.
It's built into the 1G systems. It's not part of the standard SDVoE the implementation. So we had to make a special board that allows us to go out and capture those previews using that board and then integrate them into Mentor so that you can see them, when you're setting it up. And they're also accessible through your control system,
which is the real beauty, right? You can use this in your control system. You can give your customers that image preview. And if you are used to installing SDVoE, this is something new because if you're installing SDVoE, there's not another solution on the market that allows you to get that screen preview that you can from MXNet 10G. So now let's talk about these network switches. And this is a big game changer for everyone who is installing SDVoE, because what you have to do right now is you have to find somebody who has a trusted 10G switch. You have to try to configure it for audio video, and it can be very difficult to do. You have to have somebody on staff that's certified in networks. Well, with MXNet, you don't have to do any of that. You know, we're taking the challenging parts away so that you can feel confident sending your techs on site to install these systems. And so let's go through the 3 different switches that we offer currently, which is going to be the 12C. This is the AC MXNet 10G 12C. It actually has 12 RJ45 ports, and this is going to be one of the world's only 10G switches that provides PoE. So you don't even have to change your infrastructure to give your customers the best imaging possible for video distribution.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of companies out there that provide 10G Ethernet connections.
Sure.
Okay, not a problem, but they don't have any PoE. So you still have to power your endpoints with the 12C. It's powering the endpoints and providing the SDVoE data and so forth.
And we will go over some different powering, because as you can see, you're not going to be able to get PoE out of these SFP ports, but out of the RJ45s you can. So if you know that you have a system that's small enough, up to 18 endpoints, you know, you can use this single switch, you can connect everything through, and you'll have no problems. When you say, Tom, 18 only has 12, well, you can actually convert these QSFP ports to be just another port for you to use. You know, John was telling me earlier how he suggests customers, when they set them up, they would probably use this for their encoders, because your decoders may have to go further distances and use PoE, but you might be able to even plug in your encoders remotely right in your rack, making it much easier. And now you have 12 full ports that you can send out to your 12 zones throughout an entire installation. But when you want to bump that up, we have the 24 port switch, which gives you 32 once we talk about breakout cables, and a 48 port switch that gives you 72 when you use all the breakout cables. So no matter how big your system is, we can help you with these single switches. And once you go beyond this, let us know and we can show you how you can stack them together. And in order to stack, and in order to plug into these switches and our 24 switch, you do have to have SFP pluses. An SFP is just this little device here, and we have them available for you in 3 different types: multi-mode fiber, single mode fiber, or copper. If you're looking for QSFP plus, as in QSFP plus 28s, this is going to be for the 25, or excuse me, for the 12C, excuse me, so that you can go beyond, you know, you can use the 12C, or you can even stack the 12C with other things. Then we have our stacking cables, which have our 25 gig for stacking the 12C and 40 gig for stacking the these ports. And so if I wanted to stack a 24 and a 48 together, well, what I have to do is I have to make sure that these ports are open, and I can extend my 40 gigs worth of signals from this port to this port, and from this port to this port. So I can now take 80 gigs out of my 24Q and pass it into this system. Now, you do want to make sure that you set up your topology correctly with the right amount of encoders on each unit coming in. And if you are stacking your switch and you're not used to that, or you've never done it before, no problem, do it. You can do it, but just call us first, right? Because we'll be able to walk you through exactly how to set it up, where to put your endpoints in. We have a great, you know, highly knowledgeable staff on available for you, for the integrator. That's what we're here for. So
yeah, most of our staff, in fact, is CTS certified. So I mean, it's a pretty impressive group.
Exactly. And so now one of the cool things we talked about is how you can expand those ports into more, right? You can take that big port and make, using a breakout cable, you can turn one hole into making 4 additional endpoints with this type of cable. So John can hold it up right here, but you can kind of see it right here. You plug this into that port, and then now you have, because it's a 40 gig QSFP plus port, we can break that 40 gigs into 4 10 gig lines. And with each one of those 10 gig lines, that's another endpoint for your system.
All right. And you can have with the 48 port, which we call the beast as well, is because it is a beast.
Yep, here, I'll get this off so you can kind of look at it there.
Yeah, and this one's got 6 SFP plus QSFP plus ports on it, so that gives you the ability to expand this from a 48 port to a 72 port switch. This is also an industrial grade switch. I just love to show you this. I'm going to spin it around for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, some of the things you can see here, it's all the fans here. What's really cool about them is they're hot swappable. So I can unscrew a fan, pull it out while the system's running, replace the fan, put it back in. I'm doing this without looking at it. Okay. So there it is. I've swapped my fan. Oh, I've got 2 power supplies, redundant. This one's gone down for some reason. Okay, let's just get it out of here, put a new power supply. This one's still working, so the switch is still running.
Amazing.
So I mean, this is a fantastic, super powerful, as I call it, an industrial class switch. So
that means when you have jobs where picture quality is extremely important, maybe you have text on screen, maybe you have huge screens showing lots of data, and you need to ensure that this system never goes down, well, MXNet is going to be that system. You're going to want to make sure you get the 48 port switch so that you have that redundancy in power, that you have that redundancy in fans, and then also, it still talks with all the other pieces, the transceivers, the control box, just like any other switch in the lineup. All right, and I'm going to share my screen again here. I just kind of wrote down some major advantages. So if you are thinking, why should I choose this system? These are some of the things that kind of set us apart. You can choose copper or fiber infrastructure. Whatever you prefer, you can make that work, because if you have those smaller systems that the 12C will work, you can use the 12C. But when you do have to go into a larger system, no problem. You got this enterprise class switches like this one that can go beyond. You have input source preview. You have network switch management in the same system where you can configure your AV system, which is one of a kind. You have 10G PoE network switch, which is one of a kind. We use a highly efficient chipset, so that is how we get down to basically zero latency. Latency so small that you could have world-class professional gamers game through this system and not notice the latency.
Or live events or whatever it might be, there will not be an echo chamber, so to speak.
Exactly. When that person's belting into that microphone and they have that huge screen behind them, it looks exactly the same, because that's what you're getting with this system when you use this solution for live events, and it works with all third-party systems. So without further ado now, John, let's take a look at MXNet Mentor. So what I'm going to do right now, guys, is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn our camera off, and I'm going to make John the presenter here, and we're going to go over and we're going to look at the Mentor system. So John, I'll make you the presenter here.
All right.
Okay, go to attendees, staff, John, make presenter. Okay, so now in yours,
you should show my screen.
Yep, show your screen. Excellent, and now we are seeing your screen right there.
Okay, so first thing we'll do is, because this guy is over on this side.
Don't worry,
I'm just going to be okay.
So they're just going to be seeing your screen, and I'm going to move this microphone so it's right over right.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so if you guys are familiar already with the 1G version of MXNet, we have 2 flavors with that. You're going to already be familiar with the 10G version of MXNet, because we're using Mentor, and Mentor is exactly the same, pretty much as the 1G version. So that's where everything starts, the system utility. So I click on that. We can see what's going on right here, all the same stuff, the firmware updates, everything's the same. Configuring the system, naming the endpoints, all that kind of stuff is all the same as before. And I can look at this. I also have the ability to bring up the diagnostics and see how, what kind of throughput I'm getting, what kind of video I'm getting, all that kind of stuff. I even have some switch management, which allows me to connect to the switch and have it tell me what the switch port numbers are and the real-time bandwidth that's going through the system right now. just like that, just very easy to do. And the other thing is, one of the big advantages of Mentor is the network connection indicators. That if you have a good network connection, meaning your cables are properly terminated, you're going to see a good connection, which is in green. If you had a cable that was marginal, the connection, the termination, maybe there's a tear in the wire, there's interference, EMI getting in there. This would change from a good to marginal, and it would change from green to yellow. So immediately it stands out like a sore thumb when you've got a bad connection. This has saved our installers thousands of hours, trying to troubleshoot why I can't get a picture through. This is going to tell you right away why you can't get the picture through. And if the connection's really bad, it goes to fail and turns red, and that's it. So that's that. Now, the other pieces is the video wall, and what I wanted to show you here is that I can go in just as I would with the 1G system and set up a video wall, and I can have like a 2x2. I can, even within the 2x2, set up tiling inside of a 2x2. So as you can see how this is graphically represented. And in a minute, I'm going to turn on some tiling so you'll be able to see that. But I just wanted you to see those pieces. We also have central command. This is, again, if you've ever seen this before, this allows us to test to see, for example, is my RS-232 control working? I can set this up. I can put in, I don't have to necessarily put in the brand, but I can if I want. I can put in the power on and off commands just like that. And then once I've got all that information set up, I can say, okay, I want to send this to this out number 5. And then all I have to do is click A or B to turn it on or off. Let's see, I don't think I've got a cable connected, but that's all I have to do. So this kind of stuff allows me to test before I try to make it work on the control system. Saves you hours and hours and hours of time fiddling with the control system. Why can't I get it to work that way? So this will kind of tell you right away. You also see we have support for KVM. Now with this system, you have the ability not only to do keyboard and mouse, but now you can also do full motion video, things like that, because we're now using that Icron module in our encoders and decoders, so or transceivers. So this is a fun way to do that. Switch management, again, it's one of a kind. I put in some new fans, so don't worry about the little red down there. That's just that's going to go away as soon as I tell it about the new fans. But here we have the ability, once again, to see the data port rates, how many packets are coming in, going out, all this kind of stuff. You can see with SDVoE, these numbers are a lot bigger than the 1G, if you've ever noticed. We also have PoE power indicators in here that's telling us how much power each encoder or transceiver is using, and this is because we're connected to the 12C switch. So the system that we're seeing right now is running on the 12C switch, which is our PoE 10G Ethernet switch. And that's a quick look at Mentor. I know we have limited time, so.
Awesome, John. That's perfect, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so now let's switch this back over to me being the presenter. We'll turn our webcam back on. All right, and I am John. I think I have to, maybe you do. Nope, I don't. Right here, make presenter. There we go. Show my screen. All right, and now we're back. So as you can see, guys, Mentor, it's pretty sweet, right? John already went through that. I did want to talk about power just really quickly, right?
Sure.
I mean, because it is something you have to think about with this. If you're going to be using the 12C, it makes it really easy. You don't have to do much thought on it. But if you are going to be using beyond that, you have to do some different things. So let's look first. The first option is with PoE. Very simple. Right. If you want to power your encoder or decoder, all you have to do with a PoE switch is plug it in one time and it's powered.
Right.
The simplest way, easiest way you can do it.
The 12C uses PoE++, so you've got 90 watts per port on that switch. Quite a bit. You don't need it because we only use about 4 to 7 watts on our transceivers anyway. So, but I mean, so a fully populated 12C with our stuff is going to be hardly breaking a sweat.
Exactly. Perfect. And then you have, if we wanted to power it locally, of course, it has a power supply. You can just plug it into an electrical outlet. And you can plug every encoder and decoder into an electrical outlet. And that way, if I'm going to use these ports that don't cover PoE, I can still do that with the 12C or with the 24 or the 48. That's every single port. But that doesn't mean that's our last one. You may have seen us move this around a little bit, and it's because there's a third way to power it, and it's to remotely power, where you can get all your power from the rack, and then you can run category cable, or if you don't have category, just any two run of copper cable, any 18-2 copper cable, and you can get power from this switch. So you could rack this up just like this, and then in the back we have a bunch of RJ45s and a bunch of powers. They're equal, so if you use one, the other one isn't active, but you can use either or, and what it does is gives power to 24 devices. So if I combine this with my 24 port switch, now if I run a fiber optic to every endpoint and a piece of category cable to every endpoint, I can remotely power the endpoints through this switch, or through this power.
Yeah. So, you know, I sometimes it's hard to, I like to call it a power injector as opposed to a switch. And the reason is that it's not really it's not a data switch.
Yeah, it's not a switch at all.
Yeah, it's just feeding power, but it looks kind of like a switch. So I don't want anybody to get confused here. It doesn't do data.
Exactly. So yeah, this is just a power injector. That's a PoE power supply. All right, and then so where does this fit? Where are you going to find these? You know, luxury homes, hospitals, mission critical installations. That comes into play. Sometimes doesn't get talked about as much, but because you have the redundancy, because you're using a full bandwidth system, no compression, this is a perfect stable solution for mission critical sets, live events, command centers, and anytime uncompressed signaling is needed. So now that we've looked at that, John, let's see if we can get this multi-view showing live.
Let me get that going. I forgot to do that on the previous thing.
Oh, no problem at all.
So here we go.
So now we can see John's going over his computer. He has that connected to his control box. Right behind here, we have a signal being set up through our SDVoE system, just one source to the entire TV, and we have some Apple TVs, we have some Rokus, we have a 7G right on top, and those are all going into our encoders and decoders, which then are, into our transceivers, which we have set as encoders. Then we have this single decoder, that's this one right here, and that decoder is then connected to this display. And then as you can see, John was over there doing a little bit of magic, and he now is showing all of these images. So this is a source, this is a source, this is a source, this is a source duplicated, just to show how many different options that you can do. Even more so, you can see that these screen sizes, they don't have to be a perfect 16:9. We actually support wider screens, smaller screens, ultra wide. One of our engineers here, Sam, has been hard at work making an EDID building tool that allows him to do all sorts of really cool things by telling computers to send him wacky signals. And just in the hope that we can figure out a way to try to kind of break this system or find those bugs. But what does it do? Nothing at all. It displays those signals. It takes that image that's playing some weird signal from some weird computer, and it's able to play it naturally. So you can have ultra widescreen and all sorts of stuff.
It's called pixel perfect. And the idea is, even on an ultra wide where you've got 32:9 aspect ratio, it shows it perfectly going across the screen, as well as now pixel perfect so you can have a portrait type pixel perfect where it's going from a third of the screen here, and yeah, it looks fantastic. It works really well, and we're really excited about it.
Exactly, we are excited. So thank you guys for joining us for today's training. This is kind of a rundown of the SDVoE system. You now know what network switches, what transceivers, what control box, what SFPs that we offer. You can see the capabilities that we are showing. And so now If you joined us for the training, thank you so much for sticking around. I am going to go over now all the questions that we got throughout the training. So if you have a little bit of extra time, I hope you stick around. Me and John,
Yeah.
you know, we in the past, sometimes we've gone on for over like an hour with questions when it gets too much.
Lots and lots of questions.
So if there are questions, we're going to address every single one. We're here, and I'm going to start right at the beginning. I do see we have quite a few questions. So let's start with the first one. First one's easy. Is this webinar going to be recorded? Yes, it will be on YouTube as early as tomorrow. It might be, you know, maybe Friday,
Friday.
But it will be on YouTube pretty shortly.
It'll be in our YouTube channel.
That's right. Okay, here's a question that Ryan proposed about the screen. The screen selection in your MXNet Mentor. We said that you get live screen previews. Now, is this a moving preview, or is this a screen or a snapshot?
Okay, so within Mentor, being that it's HTML, we have to do snapshots. You don't get with a web interface, you don't get that moving video the way you would normally want to get it. Because what we're doing is we're capturing little like JPEGs or you know, type pictures, but it's a substream within the SDVoE system. So that allows us to tap into that substream for things like a control system where you have a touch panel and you've got that preview that's full motion going on instead of the snapshot. But just for setup and configuration and things like that, the single snapshots are fine for that part of MXNet.
Exactly. So if you did need it to be a dedicated source for a touchpad, we can, you know, give us a call. John and Kevin and Austin, they can make that happen. But what could happen if you have, you know, 20 encoders coming in? What it will do is it will give you the screenshot, and I'll just keep going through so you can see all 20 of them. You know, it's not going to be have all the 20 moving videos on your MXNet Mentor. All right, next question. And make sure if you guys have questions, you're putting them in the question control, your GoToWebinar control panel. That's where we're addressing these questions. This is from Sean. Is this your own switch, or is it just OEM Netgear?
It's our own switch. All of our switches, our 1G switches, our 10G switches are our switches. We designed them. That, you know, go find, you know, because that's a great question. Go find somebody else out there that's got a PoE 10G copper switch. There isn't.
Exactly.
You know, so it has to be our switch.
I mean, there actually is, but it is like $110,000. I found a prototype one.
Oh,
but anyway,
okay.
Not comparable. And that is a great question.
Yeah.
First of all, we are also a network partner, or a Netgear partner. So do you have a Netgear switch that meets our capabilities for our system? Then that's no problem. You can continue to install Netgear. We will continuously work with Netgear. Our system will work with other network switches. But what has to happen with that is you need to know everything about that network switch.
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody on site that knows everything about that network switch, well, then we suggest going with our switch, because we can help you with, since we know everything about ours.
And keep in mind, these are layer 4 enterprise class switches, so they're not slouches at all. And in fact, we have had, you know, there's been product shortages out there where we've ended up having to take our switches and detune them, so to speak, take the AV over IP stuff out, the IGMP, all that kind of stuff, actually change the configuration of the switch so it could be sold as just a regular data switch.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and because they couldn't get you know, brand X or Y because they were out of them. And so, you know, these are great switches. I'm really proud of them. They're super quiet. That's one of the things that's really, you know, a fun part that people enjoy. We're really sensitive about our equipment making noise, and so we put Noctua fans into the 12C switch. As you know, and any of the switches that you've worked with, if you've worked with our 1G systems, you know how quiet those switches are. And you know, again, this is our stuff it allows us to do that.
Exactly. The next question is, did you say this would pass 10G on Cat 6 and Cat 5, not just Cat 6A? I can tell. I'm going to cover this. We suggest Cat 6A. We do not suggest Cat 5. We do not suggest Cat 6. We can suggest Cat 6A. Now, if you have something in and you think you know and you want to try by all means you can, but we cannot guarantee the stability of our system. We cannot guarantee the stability for your customers. We can't guarantee you're going to get the same amount of quality, that you're not going to have dropouts when you use a lesser type cable. So that's just something to keep in mind.
With Cat 6A, you can go 100 meters. So that's a pretty good run for a lot of places. 333 feet. So
very using the 12C, which is perfect. All right. Ryan has another one. Do you provide a 12 volt pigtail for the transceiver to be used with the 24 port power supply, not just RJ45 but 2-wire? Yes,
yeah,
you can.
Right
you can see this has this little orange port right here, Ryan. So it's going to have, you just get this little dongle, and it has the 2 screws that you stick your wire in, you screw it down, and then you can plug it right in here.
Yep.
All right, Jeff has a question here. Please suggest applications for 1 gig MXNet versus 10 gig MXNet.
Okay.
I'll jump in right away, John. You start thinking as kind of I'm talking about it, but I'll tell you the first thing that is going to be image quality. This gives you a fully uncompressed signal. So you're sending 4K without any manipulation, allowing you to get the best imaging possible. And so that means you can have when imaging is the most important, you want to go with SDVoE. Now, 1G system has the increased or the enhanced picture with V2, but even with that, it's not as good as SDVoE is going to be. So your picture quality is going to be a huge one. And then if you need a multi-viewer, right now AVPro sold multi-viewers for years. It was one of our first products that we came out with over 5 years ago, but the chipsets are gone to do 4K multi-view. So if you do need a multi-view system, you cannot use the 1G system. You cannot use our HD-based system. You would have to use our SDVoE system for multi-view. So those are going to be 2 right away. Can you think of, and John?
I mean, anything in the medical field, where you're going to have text sitting over colors, you're going to have x-rays, and what you want to be able to see the finer points of that x-ray. It's going to require the crispness that you get out of this system, that it'll be a little bit fuzzier on the other system. Now, let's keep in mind some things, like, for example, we see this Blu-ray playing over here, this with the mouse running around right here. Okay, this Blu-ray uses about 9.2 gigabits, okay, when we have a 10 gigabit system. So what does my system have to do to get that across? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to do any compressing or anything. It's just, that's all it's taking. So we're getting what you see going in and what you see going out are the same. They're untouched, okay? Now, on our Evolution 2 system, it's a 1 gig system. So now I got to take a 9.2 gig system signal and smash it down to fit within a 1 gig pipe. And so that we're going to have to really work on playing some tricks with the data and so forth, and removing data so that there's less data, and the lesser the data, the lesser the picture quality. Now, we've done a wonderful job with Evolution 2, and it's got certainly lots of applications where it's going to fit, but none of them are going to be able to put out as good a picture as this system.
And I would say, even for if you are doing an Evolution 2, I would suggest doing an SDVoE system until pricing becomes a concern, and then you can kind of move it back down to version 2, because with this system, it does cost more. This is a premium system. You're getting the best of the best, literally the greatest, highest technology that you can do for networking and putting audio video over it. So there are customers that are SDVoE 10G customers, and then you may find that there are customers that are just not going to be those same customers.
Yeah, they're more budget minded.
Yeah, and that's going to be okay, because AVPro Edge is a solutions company, and as you guys installing AVPro Edge, you get to offer your customers your installations whatever solution is needed for that solution or for that specific install. The SDVoE one is the best of the best. I would suggest trying to put this in every single job. If you're able to get SDVoE, you're going to have a happier customer. You're going to have easier, you know, updates and troubleshooting later down the road, and it's stable and works forever. Probably already has the infrastructure. So that's why I suggest this is the one that you sell. But as you know, you get the objections or you have different limitations, then you can start to look at some of our other solutions. So I hope that helped, Jeff. But it really is the top of the line, the top notch tier for video quality. It's must have for hospitals, must have for live events, must have for esports. And then there are plenty of other places that just picture quality HDR, that's important. Yep. Then this becomes important as well. All right, Brian has another question. Is the controller changing the ratio if it is compressed or cut? Brian, can you give us a little bit of a follow-up on that? Because I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Is it maybe, are you talking about the USB signal, or are you talking about the HDMI signal that's being compressed or cut?
Might be something to do with the capture, but I'm just guessing on that.
Yeah, it could be, and it definitely would be for that.
Yeah, for the capture, at least for the image previews on Mentor, they're going to be squished down a little bit because it's going through a different board. It's being processed. You know, it's a process signal.
And just like this TV has a maximum capability that it can send. Now, if we had 50, you know, or 10 4K 60 sources all sending 10 gigabits worth of data to one screen to put a multi-viewer on, well, then it wouldn't show any imaging. So what happens is we take those images, you compress them, you process them in a certain way so that we can still send one 10 gig signal to the TV, but we get to see all these imaging. So know that when you do use multi-viewer, these individual screens are not going to be native uncompressed screens. These are screens that are processed so you can see everything at one time. All right, Ryan says, okay, clarification. What do you get to connect the 2-wire power to the transceiver? You get so this is a Phoenix plug. That's the type, that's the name brand of this, is a Phoenix connection. And so you would get a little block, it's about this big, that is a Phoenix connection that fits directly into this. So that, you know, if you wanted to, you could have all of these plugged in already and then put your wires to them, or you could, you know, screw your wires to, and then you could connect each one.
And then on the other end, when you go into the transceiver, you're just going to go into either the 1G or the 10G RJ45 connection, and you just have to flip the appropriate switch, and that will power it. Okay, there won't be any data going through that because your data is going to come through the SFP fiber connection.
And if you are looking for exactly how to wire this, Ryan, we'll have this in our manual. Our manual is still being worked on right now, so it isn't out, but our quick start guide should be out by the end of the day. You'll see our manual very shortly that will go over, you know, exactly how if you're using this type of power, how to set up, you know, your RJ45 head, which pins to put it into. We have that all laid out for you in our documentation.
We'll be having some wiring too that's going to come out, that's going to have both the power in it, the two-wire power, and a fiber strand in one cable. So you got one single cable pole to get from point A to point B that'll provide you know, fiber data, SDVoE, as well as power.
Exactly, and our friends over at Clearline make that. So if you need it today, if you want to install it today for a job, just call your friends over at Clearline and they will be able to get you that fiber optic cable that also has 18.2 power inside it. All right, we have a question from Patrick. Wouldn't you have to compress an 18 gig signal? Yes, Patrick. Yes. Anything over 10 gig gets compressed down to 10 gig. So if you're doing a 4K 30 signal with HDR, that is sitting right at about 9.2 gigabits per second, which would be no compression. But let's say you're watching a 4K 60 football game on Amazon Prime. Well, that's going to be compressed down to 10 gig so that you can get your signaling. Great question.
It's much lighter compression compared to the 1 gig system.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And Ryan, he just followed up the other end. So yes, you're exactly correct. On the other end, you would use your RJ45 that you would have. We do not provide RJ45 heads. It would have to be provided by the integrator.
Yep.
All right, is the 10G available and ready to ship? It is available. We are just gathering everything. If you put your order in today, you will find your shipment coming out in the next 2 weeks. And this was done on December 28th, 2022. So if you're watching this later on YouTube and it's 2 weeks away from now, you can get your order right away.
Yep.
So not an 18.2 to the 12 volt. No, definitely, exactly, Ryan. You don't put it to the barrel connection. You would use it to the PoE connection, because this is a PoE provider. So it's providing the exact amount of power for PoE. It's actually not providing a 12 volt signal that you would find from your barrel connection, right? So what you want to do is on the other end of that cable is you actually wire those two ends to an RJ45 head, you know, just like you have at the end of every single network switch, or excuse me, network cable or Ethernet cable. And then you'll just put, instead of lining up all of your twisted pairs, you only have to plug in one twisted pair into it. Excellent. All right, that looks like that is all the questions we have. Thank you so much for joining me and John today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate, John, another great training, man.
Yeah, awesome. Always.
That's right.
Always fun.
All right.
Thanks, thanks for your time today.
Yep. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Boom.
Okay.